Hi, I'm Todd Rheingold, the hopeful aspirant. Welcome to another installment of I Got a Testimony. Today I have with me Corey Hatchell. I met Corey recently. He has a really cool testimony he's going to share with us today. So I'm going to toss it right over to him. Corey, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Todd. Thanks for having me on. My whole thing is around faith, goals, and those that surround you to help you accomplish those things. Part of my major story, and we get into it in some more detail, is like the team of either friends or family and what it is or who it is that I needed to have around me to accomplish my goals, because I've failed at more things than I've succeeded in. However, part of the success is to not quit trying. And so I've never been so far off my horse that I can't get back on, but I've also never like jumped on it the very first time and everything worked out the way it was supposed to work out. And then it just happened like that. Like that's never happened to me. And so in my 47 years of being here and trying to accomplish a number of things, from academics to work life to getting some personal things that I want to do and starting my own company and doing certain things, I've had all these goals, and each one has come with pitfalls, and each one has come with coming up short, and each one is coming up with feeling like I lost everything, or I really missed it. It's like playing a game and you feel like, "Look, I just lost." But how do you get prepared for the next game? How do you get prepared for the next day? How do you kind of get yourself up? Is kind of, I think, where I want to focus on today.
Okay.
There's nothing I've ever accomplished by myself. And I've been playing sports for a long time, so I use a lot of sporting analogies, but because I've always relied on teammates.
Right.
And so whether that's on the field or off the field, it's about the team and then having those common goals. And it's like choosing to surround myself around the individuals that I know will have somewhat of a common goal to help us succeed.
I don't know if you come from a big family. I'm the youngest of three, and then my two parents. But then I grew up in a neighborhood of boys, and I think there were 6 or 7 of us that ranged in age, and I was the youngest in that group. So I always had to learn that however I felt and what I wanted, a lot of times it took a back seat to what everybody else wanted because of the age thing. But at the very least, what I learned was there are other viewpoints and there are other people involved. My son is pretty much an only child. His sister's 12 years older. And so you could see that reflected in him. He's very entitled, not a bad kid, not necessarily spoiled, but entitled. Whereas somebody like yourself, me, we played sports. We learned about that give and take thing. But I absolutely agree with you about mentoring. I pray for that all the time. I haven't had a lot of mentors, and especially with this venture that I'm doing right now, I could definitely stand to have a few more. So I'm really interested in where you're going with this.
And it's funny. So we have probably more similarities than we even know. So I'm the youngest of 3. I have 2 older brothers, and so I kind of learned a whole lot of. I learned most things from losing to them at something. So I've never won a fight in my house. I've never won video games in my house. I never won a race in my house. I never won like any of those things. And so I'm the youngest in a competitive family, and my brothers like never let me win. And there was never this sense of, well, he's the youngest, or he's the baby, so let's just let him win. No, they never let me win. They tried to beat me as bad as they could in whatever we were playing at that particular time.
Yep.
And in the neighborhood I lived in, it was the same. Like I was one of the younger guys with everyone in my neighborhood. And of course, I wanted to hang out with my older brothers and his friends. And so if they've ever let me play in a game with them of tag football in the street or whatever they were playing, I was the youngest guy doing it. And so it kind of put me on a fast track to kind of really learning how to deal with not succeeding. But what success meant, because even then success meant they let me play like I was in the game. And so just to be in the game meant something. And it coming from, a household, I did have both of my parents at a young age. And then my dad passed away when I was 9. So I was in the 4th grade. And so most of the guys in my neighborhood, dad wasn't around. And so I would say 90% of us in our neighborhood was in a 1-parent household.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to where, like, I knew my dad. He was in the house. He was in there every day until he passed away. My mom ended up raising us from there. So now she has 3 boys that she's raising, and she's working full time. And in this environment, as far as our neighborhood, and back then, your neighborhood was kind of like your extended family.
Sure.
And you relied on that, and you relied on your neighbor, and you relied on, the person, the family that's down the street, and anybody can discipline anyone. So I can get a
Mhm.
whooping in my house, I can get a whooping at my friend's house down the street, which nowadays, like, you can't even think about that. Like no one better touch anyone's kids. But then it was kind of that system and that structure. And so it helped so much because I think we missed some of that extended family structure that kind of helped hold things together. One of the things that you touched on is just mentors. And I had a great mentor early on in this rec center that was in my neighborhood. And his name was Tony Gray. And it was weird because Tony Gray was the only Black male who worked there in the rec center.
Okay.
And so he was the only person who looked like me. And then I found out, like, later, him and my mom went to high school together, like back in the good day. And this was before they even integrated high schools.
Mhm.
And so that kind of like age group were very tight in my neighborhood, or in my town of Jacksonville, North Carolina, because their schools back in their time, schools were not integrated. So a lot of the Black families like all knew each other because they all had to go to the same school. So anyway, just to say, when I saw him and we would play things like kickball or wiffle ball or things like that, I'm thinking, okay, this is the guy that looks like me. He's like the all-time pitcher. I'm like, he's gonna let me win all the time. He never let me win at anything. He tried harder to get me out than he did anyone else. Someone else could kick the ball to him and he'll fumble the ball and let such and such get on base. He would dive to make an out to get me out if he could. And I used to want to cry. I'm like 8 years old and I don't get it.
Right.
And I ended up asking him one day. I was kind of like, Mr. Chong, like, why don't you let me win or let me get on base like you let them get on base? And he told me, and I remember this, and I was like 8 or 9 years old. He said, there's no one in life that's ever going to let you do anything. And I need to help prepare you for that. Mm. And when he told me that, I was like, wow. And still at the age of 9 or so, you don't get it. It starts to make sense the older you get. And then it tied to the fact that my brothers never let me win. Now I'm in this rec center, and the one guy who looks like me doesn't let me win. And it's like, what is this whole thing? And later on, you realize it's building character. It's building being able to succeed after you fail at something.
Right.
But then you start to change that nomenclature of, you don't call it a failure. It's just that I didn't reach my goal that particular time. Now, how do I come back to play again the next day? How do I get up to bat again? How do I come back to kick the ball again just because I didn't succeed yesterday? And so that type of mentorship is so important because it helps you deal with what the realities are going to be, that things don't work out the way you want them to just because you want them to work out.
I was thinking about a couple things when you were saying that. I'm sure he meant well when he said that to you, and I'm not saying that what he said to you as far as it being a jungle out there kind of thing, and I got to prepare you. I'm not saying there isn't some evidence of that and that's not true. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the mistake is, again, we want to have a balance in life.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have pressure, but we also need to have peace. We need to have challenges, but we also need to have triumph. And I think that those adults who do that, a lot of times it can break a child's spirit. Mm-hmm. Because if you're 9 years old and you're small and everyone's bigger and stronger than you, especially this teacher or this authority figure, and this authority figure is saying, I ain't going to give you nothing. No one else is either. And you're going to have to just bust your butt. Well, for some people that would inspire them, and they can look back 20 years later and say, I'm where I am because of that. But what about all the people whose spirit he broke? What about people who said, well, forget it. There's no way I can ever be as big and strong as this guy. And like I said, I'm sure he meant well, but I know in my own experience that I don't respond well to that. Mm-hmm. I respond better to mentors in the sense of people being supportive, people saying, hey, Todd, I believe in you, man. You can do this. You can do this. It's already in my nature to work hard and to do the best I can do. So when someone comes at me with that, to me, it's almost an accusation of saying, you're not trying hard enough. So I'm just saying, I think it's good, but I think like everything, there needs to be a balance.
You touched on a very good point, and I remember this when I got into coaching. And so, press fast forward, I did play sports throughout high school as a child. Throughout high school, I was fortunate enough to play on the collegiate level. So I played football in college. And then after that, I got into coaching, and I coached high school sports, and I coached on the college level as well. And what I learned is that when you're the one that's trying to be the mentor, when you're the one that's being the teacher, when you're the one that is being like that inspiration for whoever you're trying to motivate at that time, it's not about what you want to say, more so it is about what that person needs to hear.
Absolutely.
And people are very different. And you can say some people need a kick in the butt, some people need a hug. And it's for you to understand what it is that this person needs. I also had to surround myself with friends that wanted to do some of the same things. Let me go find some guys that I know want to play sports too. And that makes playing even more fun. So it's like you need to have some type of common interest, even if they're not the exact same. What's the common interest? We're not going to get in trouble in school just because we want to play the basketball game today. So we're not going to get in a fight in school. We're not going to get suspended. So many people get themselves in a bad situation because of who they were around. And we all have that friend. We all have those friends that somehow, some way find themselves in a situation. I can't say I want to launch my own business, but yet I keep hanging around people that have none of that in mind. Those are the things that are so important. You don't even realize it at the time. And for like yourself, I have a child, I have a son. Mm-hmm. And my goal in life is to be my son's role model. One of the things that I did, and I was fortunate to do last year, was I was able to direct a commercial. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to launch my own marketing line. And we put it on YouTube. And so it shows my commercial. Now, my son doesn't know the difference. So he sees a commercial on the TV. He thinks it's a legitimate like television commercial, not just realizing it's YouTube. But he looked at me and he said, "Dad, I'm proud of you." And as a father, anytime you can get that, anytime you can hear that,
yeah,
"Dad, I'm proud of you," it does something to you. This is what I need to keep doing because I want to keep making that impression on him so that he can start, like taking pride in everything that he does as well. So that was just a big moment in our household. It definitely was a big moment for me as a father.
It can't be overstated how important we all are to other people. Mm-hmm. Even people we don't realize, like we know we're important to our children, but you don't know who's watching you. And anyone can be inspired by you that you don't even know it. My father used to bless people. The guy on the hockey team, who to this day, I don't think he knows, but he wasn't going to be able to play with us. And he was the goalie. And he had outgrown his equipment. Mm-hmm. And he said to us, "I'm not going to be able to play this year." So like he missed the first practice. My father found out about it and he went out and bought him all his equipment. And he donated, and goalie equipment even back then was $200. And he donated it, and he told the coach, don't tell him I'm the one who gave it. I'm just happy that he has it. I believe in a community of faith and people being there for you. And I think if everybody helped everybody, a rising tide lifts all boats.
That's well said. Everyone should have something that they like spending their time doing. And those are the things that will help keep you out of trouble. One of the things I never will forget this, and those who went to high school with me or even lived in Jacksonville remember this. But so when I was 14 years old, I was asked to join the varsity football team. It was basically to be a backup quarterback. The guy who was going to be a starting cornerback was a stud, and he was one of my athletic role models. I looked at him, he played football, he played basketball, he played baseball, and he was a stud in all of them. He was my guy. It's I want to be like this guy. And I remember the Thursday before our first game. So the first game was Friday night. Our high school coach was talking about, guys get some rest and, everybody get a good night of sleep. No one needs to be out late and so on and so forth. My mom wakes me up that Friday morning at 7:00 in the morning. And she says, "Corey, Coach Martin's on the phone." And so I get on the phone and it was Corey. And he said, "I just want you to know such and such got arrested last night.
Mm.
Who's the starting quarterback? Got arrested last night. He can't play. You have to start at quarterback tonight. This is a conversation that's happening at 7 o'clock in the morning for a game that's going to happen at 7 o'clock, like 12 hours from then. And he said, I need you to come to the high school. I need you to come to school now. Because he knows I'm the backup quarterback. I'm not paying attention to play. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to. So I wasn't even paying attention. So I had to ask my mom to drive me. I'm 14. I can't drive myself. And I remember getting to the high school. My mom drove me. I had on a, I remember this. I had on a yellow Bart Simpson tank top. This Bart Simpson was cool. I had on a Bart Simpson tank top, and I get out, and football is a big deal where I'm from. The news was there, and everyone was there, and I get out of the car, and the news is in my face. It's like, I'm a 14-year-old kid. And it was like, I got on this yellow Bart Simpson t-shirt with probably something stupid said on the front of it. But it was just that this person was in a place that they shouldn't have been, in an environment they shouldn't have been in, and ended up in that situation that made our paths go so separate, because it pushed me into the limelight of Jacksonville High School has a 14-year-old starting quarterback. And then he didn't get those opportunities. And this was his senior year. I was just a sophomore. And it gets to your point, like you said, like, depending on what it is that you're doing, sometimes keeps you away from certain things. It doesn't make one person a bad person, one person a good person. It's just like, this keeps me away from certain things, the opportunity for something to go wrong, or for something to, to end up where you don't need to be. And thankfully, sports was able to keep me, sports and family situations were able to keep me from certain situations that, I don't know, I could have made some of the same bad decisions that some others made if I was there. It's just, thankfully, I was not there to even put myself in that position. It's
a lesson, because in life, you never know when that opportunity is actually going to come. And me being a praying man, I pray. But then a lot of times what we do is we expect it to come a certain way. Well, what if it comes this way? You got to be prepared so that when that opportunity comes, you make the most of it. So let me ask you, did you play the rest of the season as a star quarterback, or did he come back?
No, I played the rest of that season. I never won another game without being a starting quarterback from my sophomore, junior, and senior year.
So how did you do?
I just did okay my sophomore year. And then we were conference champions and were ranked high in the state both my junior and senior year. It is that situation of being prepared, but it's also taught me about teammates. And we had some other teammates that kind of put their arm around me and say, hey, I know you're young and we're going to be okay. You just do this and let me do the rest. You need to be willing to accept that when it's happening in real time, and don't shy that person away and kind of like, no, I don't need that. I'm good. Like, you don't have to be the tough guy. Take the arm around you and understand it. And then realize when you need to be the one giving that arm. And that was one of the earlier lessons that I learned, and it's helped me throughout life, even to this day, of knowing, do I need to put my arm around someone, or do I need someone to put their arm around me?
Right. So that must have been a transformative experience in and of itself. You went from the back of the line to the front of the line, and everyone's looking at you, whereas before you're on the sidelines with your helmet off, just standing there, What did that do for you as far as your self-esteem, your confidence? Did it affect your grades, like social life?
It's amazing. It has more so impacted me as an adult. And I always tell this story only because we all go to job interviews, so as adults. And a lot of times in job interviews, other than talking about the job itself, they want to know, tell me about a time where you had to overcome adversity. I always tell that story. Because it's true, like it happened, and it's documented, and you can go pull like files and newspapers clipping that happened. And that was the time to where I had to overcome an adversity at a very young age of something that just happened. And who are the people that were going to be around me? What it did for me was to make me know that if I have the right people around me, I can accomplish things that I want to accomplish. From that point on, it got to the point where I was thinking, you know what? I can be successful if I'm around the right people. And if I put somewhat of preparation into it, I can make this happen. And that same coach was the first coach who started talking to me about college. And so, at that point, or before that point, I thought about college. I have two older brothers, and one of my older brothers, he was in college playing football. And so I was kind of thinking about it from that standpoint, but it still seemed like a long shot as well. And it was that high school coach that was kind of more telling me, look, these are the things you need to do, not on the field, in the classroom.
Mhm.
And at that point, like, the light starts to come on. And at some point, I'm telling you, you keep saying it, like the light comes on for all of us at some point. And for some of us, the light's on at 10 years old. Some of us, the light comes on when we're 40, and you just don't know like what that light is and who is it that's going to be the one to click that. But that's kind of what happened with me and with my high school coach, with him at least like putting it in my ear. You can go to college. If you, he told me, he said, if you don't go to college, it's going to be your fault.
Who are some of these other adults that really stand out for you and help shape you into who you are?
Coach John Patterson was one of the people that he was kind of very instrumental from a transition from a boys to men standpoint. He was one of my coaches when I got to Elon, where I went to college at when I was 17. And so he saw me grow from that time that I was 17 when I got there as a freshman to the time when I graduated as a fifth year senior. And then he hired me on his staff to coach high school football in Charlotte, North Carolina. So now I'm in my young 20s coaching with him. And then he took me with him to go coach in college at Lenoir-Rhyne College in Hickory, North Carolina. He saw things in me before I saw it. And sometimes you need someone that's telling you that, and you need someone that's telling you, no, I want you in this position because you can do this, this, and this. And you don't even understand that, what that means. Correct. Until later on. And so he was one of those people that was that instrumental in believing in me before I even knew what was there to believe in.
What do you do to kind of steady yourself, anchor yourself, and get your feet back on the ground so that you can come out swinging?
And that's a great Oprah question of yours. And I have one of three things, and I think everyone should have kind of their thing. And so it's either something that you need to do, something you need to see, or something that you need to hear. And that's just what I'm saying. So sometimes I just need to go do something. When I say do something, I need to go and just get some energy out to where I can just like mentally release. And sometimes that can be physical I just need to go walk, run, exercise, and just kind of get that out. So that's just something to do. Sometimes it's something you need to hear. And everyone kind of has their kind of go-to, like whatever genre of music that you listen to, you need to know who that artist is or what that song is and what that thing is that's going to be like when the walls seem to be crashing down, this is my song. And sometimes you need to see something. And when I say see something, you may need to remind yourself of something that you've accomplished before. And so for myself, I wrote a book like 15 years ago called Walking the Tightrope. So I'm an author, and I had a book that was published. I have a copy of my book sitting in the house right now. There's no Pulitzer Prize winning, anything like that. However, it reminds me that I can accomplish whatever I want to accomplish. Sometimes you need a reminder that I do the stuff, or I've tried to do the stuff that most people don't do. And then, of course, is someone you need to talk to. And that goes back to your circle. And then who is it that you can get on the phone with? Like, no judgment, no anything, but I can just call and say, yo, this is the situation right now. What do you think? And it's having that conversation. And so that's kind of like the space that we need to be in, especially when it's the fourth quarter of a game in your situation and you're losing. Like that's when it's kind of like, man, I need to find the right people that's going to help me finish this.
What I just asked you is what you do, right? What would you say to the audience when they're going through a really, really horrible day? What would you say to them to anchor them and help them get through it and get back on their feet?
It's difficult to accomplish anything on your own. So first recognize your team and who is it that's on your team. And don't be afraid to let go of teammates that are no longer good for your team. And that's the thing. Like the fact that you've been hanging around such and such since y'all were in the 8th grade, if that hasn't been positive or it's no longer positive, you didn't sign a contract to say you have to keep hanging around with this person or this group if it's taking you somewhere where you don't want to be, or if it's not letting you get where you want to go. And your team is so important. And so many times we get caught up into this, I got to keep it real. I got to always stay with this person in this room. No, you don't. You do not. You don't owe anything to anyone who is not set up in your life right now to help you accomplish the next things you want to accomplish. They may have been there to help you accomplish what you needed to accomplish before, but now you're trying to move forward. And if they're stuck in this space, you can't stay there with them. And then it's the preparation piece and making sure that you're prepared to ask for what it is you want and understand what you need to do to get what it is you want and be prepared to receive what it is you want. And then lastly, I would say, even after all that, prepare for it not to work. Prepare to have something go off, something you didn't plan for. Like, imagine how many people at this time last year had all these dreams because they were about to launch their music career. They're about to go on tour and they're about to do this. They're finally going to get their shot. COVID happens.
Is there anything that maybe you thought I was going to ask you or that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to touch on?
I did want to plug my own commercial. I've been able to shoot 2 commercials under Aretha Sun. Aretha Sun, I named it after my mom because that's the one that had my back and always put that inspiration in me. So I said if I ever did anything, I was doing it in her name. So Aretha Sun, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. We want to do promotional materials and commercials, and we feel like whatever product or idea you have, we can help you advertise it better. So hit me up, Aretha Sun, IREATHAS_Sun on either Facebook or Instagram. And I promise you, we can make whatever you got even better or just put it out to a broader audience. So let me know how we can help.
Fantastic. Well, I really want to thank you for being on the show today, Corey. This is Todd Rheingold, the Hopeful Aspirant. Let's all aspire to reach higher and stay inspired. God bless.